in today's video, I'm going to explain to you how to find your RM or your rep max. Now, this will be expressed in your program as two big capital RM letters. And if you absolutely have no idea what a rep max is, it's essentially the maximum amount of weight you can lift for a certain amount of reps. So in your strength and conditioning programs, you may see an exercise with 2 sets of 10 to 12 rep max expressed. What that essentially means is you need to perform that exercise with a weight that you can only perform either 10, 11, or 12 reps with. The reason we do this is to tightly govern the amount of force that is applied to a muscle group or a movement, and to track and measure that so that we can eventually improve the amount of force that that muscle or that movement pattern can produce. That is essentially getting stronger. Now, we know that for a great body composition, for a really healthy and young, anti-fragile body, we need strength. We lose it as we age. So the cornerstone of your program should always be based around using a rep max in a linearly periodized way. So you'll also notice that if you've got a program from myself, it'll be built out in phases of, say, 4 weeks, where every 4 weeks that rep range, it just gets a little bit lower, and that helps you break through those plateaus that you often experience when you've been training for a little while and you can't lift any more weight. So by reducing the reps, we're manipulating how your body can adapt to heavier weights over time. So we cycle through that, and that's a discussion for another day. But how do we find your RM? Look, honestly, you're not going to know what your rep max is for at least the first few weeks, even for the first few months. I'm going to help you here with a couple of tactics that you can use to find that RM quicker. But if you treat your first 12 weeks of a strength program, this is kind of considering that you may have never actually done any strength training, or it's been a long time since you've done some strength training. If you just treat that first 12 weeks as an exploratory phase, then you're going to have a much better time finding that rep max. It is usually the second 12-week block where you start to really know what you can lift and you can start to push it. All of that out of the way, let's get into some tactics. The first tactic that I'm going to teach you is repping out. Now, repping out is something that essentially means doing as many reps as possible at a chosen weight or a chosen difficulty. Behind me, you can see some rings. And what we're going to do is I'm going to do some really hard ring rows. And with those ring rows, I'm going to just try and find my rep max as best I can. Hey, Sarah, how you going? I'm just in the middle, so if you just want to listen in, go for it. So when I go over there and I find my rep max, then I'm going to be able to easily adjust my difficulty level based on what I explore. So this is something that I often do with my clients, maybe every, say, 3 months, just to make sure, they're not fudging themselves or fudging me. So let's start with a ring row. Now, if you're using a TRX, it's the same principle, okay? Now, the reason I'm using the rings right now is because rings are notoriously difficult to repeat the amount of load. So I'm going to show you how to do that first. The further you walk away and the more upright you are, the easier that exercise will be. The closer you walk, and I'm talking about the closer to that end point or that anchor at the top, the harder it gets. As you can see, this is going to be quite difficult. So from here, I'm going to rep out. Okay, I'm going to make sure I'm doing nice, clean reps. That's 6. 12. So if I was aiming for a 10 to 12 RM and I'm up to 14, we're now starting to get a little tough. 16. 18. Okay, I've got 18 out. So what that there tells me is I'll need to, for my second set, walk in a little closer so I can get a little more parallel to the ground, so that it's more difficult to really challenge myself within that 10 to 12 rep max. Okay, so when using a system like a suspension trainer, whether it's rings or TRX, it's the angle of the body that changes the difficulty. Now, this changes from exercise to exercise, but the basic principle remains that if, for example, you're doing your TRX row or a ring row, then you'll need to get as parallel as possible to make it harder or closer to parallel, depending on where your strength level is at. If it's, say, for example, a squat or a single-legged squat, it's actually the more upright you can get, the harder it gets. Okay, so if you're trying to get this single leg squat working for you, the more you use the arms, obviously the more you're going to be taking force away from the leg. So the less you use your arms, the more force. Okay, that's a lot harder. Okay. If we're using weights, automatically becomes a lot easier. This is why I'm a big fan of barbells and dumbbells. Well, one of the reasons I am. So as you can see there, I've got a bench set up. Now, let's say I have absolutely no idea what I could lift. And it's the first time I'm lifting and I want to find my rep max. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pick something that is on the cautious side. Okay. For me, maybe I'll go 20 kilo dumbbells. Now, I've got a really good knowledge of how much I can lift. You're obviously not going to be picking up 20 kilo dumbbells. You may pick up 5 kilo dumbbells if you're just starting. And then you're going to get into that bench press position. And then you're going to really methodically, very consciously perform your reps, making sure everything is turned on and tight. I've picked up to 20 because I know I can do much more than 10 to 12 reps. Okay, so that's 5. Hopefully I can count, and you haven't been counting for me. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go that extra mile. I'm going to rep out. Okay, and rep out completely so that I know I've exhausted that movement pattern. That's 10. That's 15. That's 25. That's 29. I want you to see a proper max out, because what will start to happen is the rep will get slower through the hard phase. Okay. Now, oh, you can see there that's becoming a struggle. Okay, so I'm about 35 there. Now, if that was me in a gym and I've walked up to the 20s and I could do 35 reps, obviously I need to increase the weight a fair bit to be able to be within that 10 to 12 rep range. That doesn't necessarily mean, though, that you'll be able to double the weight, okay? Because there's the principle of diminishing gains. Just because you can do a certain amount of weight for 30 odd reps doesn't mean you'll be able to do twice as much for half the amount of reps. So in this circumstance, say you've gone and picked up the 5 kilo dumbbells and you've managed to get a fair whack of reps out, then I would go up to maybe something that was about 25% heavier, and then just go again. You're still getting a workout in, so it's important not to take the rep range literally. Record the reps that you get, because that was a set for me. 35 reps at 20 kilos, that would be considered a set. And the same for you if you've gone and picked up a weight that is too light, and you've done a lot more reps and you've repped out. You've just put down those reps, those weights, and next week will be the chance for you to obviously recalibrate and beat that. So I guess what you want to avoid is trying to stay really rigidly between those rep ranges, and open up the opportunity for you to fatigue completely, because the reason that you want to do that is to try and cram as much work in as little time or as little volume as possible, so that the intensity is high. And we know that is what changes body shape, changes body composition. It improves health, it improves all of those markers you're trying to achieve when you're in the gym. Okay, so I'll leave that there. Have fun. Use that drill to rep out, and do it to challenge yourself. Not every week, but do it every now and then, so that you know you're picking weights and intensities that are heavy enough.